We're moving on with the ballot initiatives. We are now at Rhode Island, that tiny little state next door to me. Rhode Island voters do not have the right to place their own initiatives on the ballot to pass and repeal state laws and amend the Rhode Island Constitution on their own. Voters only have the power to ratify into the Rhode Island Constitution what the legislature puts before them through what's called a legislative referred constitutional amendment, aka state legislator amendment. So that's unfortunate for Rhode Island. It's interesting too. We're neighbors. You would think if we can do it, they can do it too, but no. Rhode Island question number 1. University Narragansett Bay Campus bond measure. All right. So a yes vote supported issuing $100 million in bonds for the University of Rhode Island Narragansett Bay Campus marine discipline, educational, and research needs. This measure passed by 57.60%. Let's get into that. From 2008 and 2021, Rhode Island voters approved all 6 bond measures related to higher education, totaling over $475.5 million. Approval rates for the measures ranged from 55.2% to 66.2%. Prior to 2022, voters last approved a bond issue for the University of Rhode Island Narragansett Bay Campus in 2018 with the passage of Question 2, which authorized the issuance of $45 million for the campus. Who supported this initiative? Governor Daniel Mickey, State Treasurer Seth Magaziner. It's an interesting last name. They're Democrats. The unions, Rhode Island Building and Construction Trades Council. Organizations, Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, Rhode Island Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Here's one of the arguments. As the state's flagship research institution, an investment in the University of Rhode Island is an investment in the state as a whole. This investment in Narragansett Bay Campus will help us continue to be a leader in the blue economy, leveraging partnerships with industry leaders, advancing scientific knowledge of our oceans, and creating good paying jobs in the process. So let's support this bond. We can afford it, and it's good investment for the state of Rhode Island. And they did support it. It passed. Now, in reference to money that was spent, there was no money that was spent to oppose it, and there was over $325,000 spent to support it. That's usually how it works, right? With the money. Okay, that's an interesting one. And then we have Rhode Island question number 2, public schools buildings bond measure. A yes vote supported issuing $250 million in bonds for construction and renovation of state public school buildings. Oh, they definitely need to be renovated. Rhode Island is, like Massachusetts, is old. And a lot of the buildings are old. So I can tell you some of these schools really do need some renovation work. Anywho, this measure passed by 73.30%. How did question 2 get on the ballot? To put a legislatively referred bond question before voters, a simple majority vote is required in both the Rhode Island State Senate and the Rhode Island House of Representatives. In Rhode Island, the State General Assembly must ask voters to issue general obligation bonds over $50,000, except in the case of war, insurrection, or invasion. The bond measure was introduced into the Rhode Island General Assembly as a provision of Article 5 of House Bill 7123 on January 16, 2020. HB 7123 included 3 bond measures. The legislator voted on each article of HB 7123 separately. The State House approved the article on June 16, 2022 by a vote of 69-1. Who was that one? All right, let's move on. I'm sorry. No money spent to support or oppose that measure. And the last one, Rhode Island question number 3, environment and recreation bond measure. A yes vote supported issuing 50 million in bonds for environmental and recreational purposes. This passed by 66.86%. Who supported this? Governor Daniel Mickey, Senate President Dominique Ruggiero, House Speaker Joseph Sicarchi, and Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. Corporations, Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, Organization, Audubon Society of Rhode Island, Clean Water Action, Climate Jobs, Rhode Island Land Trust Council. Here's one of the arguments. Funding supplied by voter approved green bonds is a catalyst that gives DIM the capability to do much of what we do to manage, protect, and restore Rhode Island's natural resources. We are grateful to stand with so many leading organizations to make the case that passing question number 3 in November will help us become a better, more equitable state that will be better prepared to deal with or meet the burden of climate change. So that's interesting. How much money was spent? There was over $27,000 spent to support it and no money spent to oppose that measure. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Rhode Island. Doobie doobie doo.